F it, we'll do it live. Oh, wait. There you go. We are live. We had, I don't even know if it was a scare in the green room. I mean, there's just scares around here.
Looking live.
We are live now, though. So, yes, definitely.
The old Brent Musburger intro. You are looking live.
Looking
at
live.
Veterans Field in Philadelphia. Okay.
Now the link, I believe. But anyway,
yes.
Cody,
now the link. Yes.
Home of WrestleMania this year, by the way. Cody Willard, fresh back from New York, along with Bryce, actually. How was the trip, gentlemen? We, did not have a show last week, but how was it? Welcome back, and any fun space happenings in New York, or mostly on the hedge fund side?
It was mostly hedge fund, but also a little bit of crypto side. It was a great trip, very productive. When I go to New York, with or without Bryce these days, I usually there for 4 days, and I line up anywhere between 4 to 6 meetings, lunches, dinners, drinks, whatever, every day. That way I make it, at least I feel like I'm doing something there, trying to work. But yeah, we had some great meetings, and in particular, we met with a young man who actually bought us dinner one night, and it was delicious Chinese food at a place called Chili, Chili. Highly recommend it. But anyway, the company, Bryce, you maybe tell them, if it's cool, tell them the name, and at least for sure tell them what the hell that crypto company did. It sounded interesting.
Yeah, just a friend of a friend's, and he works at a company called Glassnode. I don't know if you've heard of that, Cabana.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they call it on-chain analytics, and I did not know what that was, but they track Bitcoin movements through different wallets, and they know specific wallets. Like Marathon is the biggest Bitcoin miner, and so they know their wallets, and they can predict precisely how much Bitcoin they mine in a quarter. They can predict costs of mining, and they have trend analysis that says, hey, buy here, sell here, whatever. And so anyways, we're looking at the product, and it's really interesting. It's a product that they sell to big hedge funds and quant desks and banks and stuff like that, and who can afford to pay for that kind of data. But it sure is interesting I don't know if another asset class where you can go in there. I mean, maybe you can with stocks. I don't know, but go in there and see exactly what somebody is buying or generating, down to the exact number of shares. It's pretty cool.
No, you can't do that on stocks. Otherwise, there would be no reason to file 13F.
Yeah, true.
Filings, thereby, and also, if you're a hedge fund running billions of dollars, you don't want your competitors to know what you're buying and selling when you're buying and selling it, because they can obviously jack around with the prices a little bit and make you pay more or sell for less.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin, yeah, that's fast. It's a fascinating model. I mean, obviously, there's companies that I don't think they're the only one, but I think they've been growing and trying to tap into, even the hedge fund world, which is how we ended up at dinner with them, because they sell this product that gives us that kind of data analytics for. Can we tell them the pricing? I don't know if any of this is confidential, Bryce.
I think it is. I think it's on their website. It's about like $800 a month or something like that.
Yeah, a few $1,000s a year to track this stuff. Bryce and I have done work on the Bitcoin miners over the last couple of years since Bryce has been working for him, but I've been, working off and on the Bitcoin miners for years. And, like right now, I would say all of them, I don't even know, there's not a single one that isn't wildly overpriced based on their potential to mine and their existing balance sheet / Bitcoin holdings. Most of them are trading at like 10 times what their net asset value, whatever their cash / Bitcoin holdings are. And they don't mine nearly enough to justify those kinds of valuations. Full disclosure, we typically will buy puts on the worst of the worst Bitcoin miners. Some of them are fraudulent. Some of them are wildly overvalued. And some of them are obviously both, because if you're fraudulent, you're by definition wildly overvalued if you exist. So yeah, I mean, we own some puts on some of those, and it becomes if if we ran 10 times more money in our hedge fund than we do, it'd be a no-brainer. Let's just sign up for it. But we run $30 million almost in the hedge fund, and justifying thousands of dollars a year for an analysis on just one sector, it's hard to justify to my investors. But if you did that for a living, if you're a Bitcoin miner trader out there, and I know there are those that exist because my Twitter algorithm has been feeding them to me since I've been shorting the Bitcoin miners, and I always see these people who are just like, the super cycle of Bitcoin mining is publicly traded stock is here, and they're all gonna they have these expectations that they're all going 50 baggers in the next 18 months on Bitcoin going to 100,000. I don't think that's likely. I think it's unlikely.
The miner stocks or Bitcoin to 100,000?
I think Bitcoin can go to 100,000.
I was going to say, I'd take the other side of that.
Yeah, that would be likely even. But
I do think their data suggests, which, and I don't know how they come up with this, but they think that we're about halfway in the move, whatever the move's going to be, from 25 to 65 now. They think that's halfway to where we're going to go. So, whatever that is, maybe 100,000.
Are they using technical analysis, obviously, or something?
Somehow, and they go back and look at prior Bitcoin moves and the activity. But yeah, it's more than just drawing lines on charts, but it's some variation.
It's like based upon previous highs. I may have seen the same thing, Bryce, but really? the next measured move is 125, 130 because it usually doubles its old high after it actually finally gets through it. But we'll see. I mean, it could go way higher or not even get there. But I'm in the camp of definitely 6-digit Bitcoin sometime this year. Yeah, probably this summer at least.
Doesn't seem unlikely.
No.
Again, I
mean the way we're going now, it's crazy.
I think Clean Spark, which I own puts on, going up 50-fold from here in the next 18 months is a lot more unlikely than Bitcoin at 100,000.
Yes.
Bryce, you ought to ask your friend Brett, I believe his name is, to come on to the SKTLs show next week after. Tell him, Wednesday here. One of these Wednesdays at 2:00 my time, 4 p.m. Eastern. He should come if he's interested. Come on and just teach us. Dan, Crypto, Cabana, and whoever's watching would enjoy it.
Sure, yeah, that's great. I'll ask him.
So we just need to say it out loud. Bitcoin 52-week highs. What's up? I thought I'd get some
all time high
or something.
Yes. Technically,
I don't know. Yes, very exciting. All-time highs. I meant yes. All-time most exciting thing that ever happened to Bitcoin is, I guess, going from less than a penny to 69,000 over the last 15 years.
Pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing.
Oh, cool.
The funny thing is, we in the securities industry, especially in wealth management, dealing with the public, there's always the 8,000 layers of rules and disclosure requirements for advertising and marketing material. And in the mutual fund industry, it was always the mountain chart. The most famous of which was the Templeton Fund mountain chart, which always said, if you put $100 in, you'd have the square root of a bazillion today. And then the SEC said, no, you must have an investor who's actually been in the fund that long in order to quote that return.
Oh, wow.
And so those are the rules. But there was one investor. So
one out of the 100,000 people
of the millions that they've had.
One of them had been there since day one and never sold.
But I'm driving in Tucson yesterday, and there's a local wealth management shop that's talking about, there's so many new things you should buy, both private and public. And what do they use as an example of what the opportunity is?
Bitcoin.
If you had put $1,000 in SpaceX, and I'm sitting there going, what are you using? What are you doing? You're talking about a private equity. And I'm like, man, Where is the compliance department? Because
This
this is
this
crazy.
is always the problem with the SEC is, they never actually enforce any of their rules
Yeah.
until it's too late, and someone who invests with that firm loses a bunch of money, sues them, goes to the SEC, and the SEC comes down and is like, oh, you can't have ads like that.
I can remember sitting there in Boston at Fidelity. Well, here we are cranking out all this stuff, saying we have to get it over to the FINRA people by the deadline this afternoon so they could sign off so we could run these ads. I'm sure all these companies are just sitting around going, yeah, what the hell? Just send this out here. I'll ask for permission or forgiveness later. I'm not asking for
They don't
permission
even ask
now.
their attorneys, obviously. If
But
they
this
ask
is
an
the
attorney
risk.
that would say, don't do that.
And this is what comes back to bite us all after the fact when somebody thinks one thing, loses a ton of money, goes crying to their state securities commission, and then the laws come down because they failed to enforce to begin with. So crypto, there's going to be that risk for a long time, that there's always going to be somebody just
Well, and look, this is where I've, for 5 years, I've been talking about the fact I can't believe that the SEC isn't cracked down on the obvious silly, fraudulent, and stupid unregistered securities that run rampant in this crypto industry. It's crazy that they've gotten away with it.
They're leaving it to the states. The states have suddenly come up with more power. And I use Massachusetts as a prime example. The state securities commissioner there is trying to run for president of the world, and he takes on everybody. And it's very difficult. But I'm just worried about the negative repercussions of people like that against the core opportunity of crypto. That's
right. That's right.
That's the risk. Somebody will screw it up for everybody.
Sure hasn't happened yet, though. I mean, there's been a lot of billions of dollars of lost in the ups and downs in this industry, and
the fraudulent behavior, the stuff that got everybody all scared to death. That's more of what people are worried about.
I bet you guys don't know this. FTX, of course. Sam Bankman-Fried, of course. Speaking of frauds that actually did get prosecuted.
That's right.
Rare as it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that Sam Bankman-Fried's stake in AI startup Anthropic is growing to be worth billions of dollars? Apparently, he was, he threw money at everything under the sun while it wasn't his. He figured, fuck it.
I did know that, and I believe I brought it up on this show about.
You did. I did not know that. I'm sorry, Cabana. I saw it this weekend and was like flabbergasted. So
fact checker. Where's the fact checker? Call the analytics department.
Cabana, you're gonna have to find that clip, Cabana. I don't think you said it on.
Re-rack the entire series. Re-rack it.
I was actually, you helped me with the name of it because I was like, it starts with an A, and you were like Anthropic, and I was like, that's it. So,
and you mentioned about the FTX / Sam Bankman-Fried connection.
Yeah, with them recouping or the funds or whatever, because that turned out like that lotto ticket or whatever it was turned out to be like one of the best returning investments under FTX, and therefore like a lot of that, like the billions could be paid back to the
but the Sam Bankman-Fried's attorneys are claiming it's his, not
right. Now that's the fight, I guess.
Yeah,
that seems fair.
Yeah,
he used their money illegally to invest in it, and then they don't get to reap the benefit.
But that's his, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sure, that's his, not the people whose money it was.
I don't know how much.
Actually, while we're talking about it, sounds just like Sam Altman at OpenAI. Of course, let's update that real quick. Elon sued OpenAI and Sam Altman and Greg Brockman, the founders and existing CEO of this company, of OpenAI, and they came out today releasing some emails internal between Elon and them, basically undermining how Elon said they were never supposed to be a not-for-profit. I'm not sure I saw any verbiage that said he thinks they needed to become a for-profit, but sure did talk about needing to raise billions of dollars in order to compete with Google, and that they could even use Tesla as a cash cow at OpenAI. At the time, Tesla had $3 billion of cash and was losing money left and right every day. I was not a shareholder in 2018 when these emails were sent. I might have even owned some puts at some point on Tesla that year. I don't even know. So interesting stuff. SpaceX, meanwhile, continuing to send astronauts into space. Like
there's another
no big
transporter
deal.
mission. The interesting thing, since there's such a love fest for launchers amongst our crowd, China. China has announced that they're going to start launching, quote, larger scale reusable rockets. So I'm wondering where they're getting this technology. But in 25 and 26, they're saying they're going to start launching 4-meter and 5-meter. Okay, so 12 and 15-foot diameter heavy lift reusable rockets. Now, Starship is 10 meters, so it's twice the size, twice the diameter. But they're working on a couple of what they're going to call these new Long March rockets, and they're what they're coming out and saying now is their plan is to put astronauts on the moon before 2030.
Now, Dan, as much problems as Boeing and Lockheed Martin at United Launch Alliance have had getting any craft up in the air safely, much less on a repetitive basis.
Right.
What are the odds that a communist bureaucracy can actually get a working spaceship up that large and have it not blow up 10% of the time or even 50% of the time?
I think the thing you have to look at is there is a point at which a country's technology, the force of gravity takes over. And so you look at Russia. Russia put landers on the moon before we did. They put somebody in space before we did. They did everything except get to the moon. And they fell short. And they had losses, as did we in the program. When we got there, they just stopped. What's the point? We lost that race. Space stations, they had theirs up. They had Mir up there for a long time. We went up there and played around with it. We put up ISS. They joined us. China has gone about their own merry way, mostly through borrowing other people's technology. And now they have gotten to the point where they built a space station by themselves. So that's good. That's all low Earth orbit. That's the backyard. Trouble getting to the moon for Russia and landing, trouble getting to Mars for everybody, basically, except us. Okay, this is where we're going to find out the answer to your question.
Yeah.
Can they push the envelope that far? Or is this where the limitation of their scientific knowledge about space flight, orbital mechanics, spacecraft design, all the bazillions of factors that go in that the U.S. has spent 60 years bolting to the floor and perfecting, including the ability to land on something that's hundreds of millions of miles away. That's going to be where the test is. And I would fully expect that they will have accidents. I fully expect that we may not hear about some of them, but it's going to be harder now than it was in the Cold War, or the first Cold War, I guess. And that is, now we can detect everything that happens. So, we'll be able to know if there's a launch. We'll be able to know where it's going. We'll be able to track it in space with the Deep Space Network. But if something happens, we won't know. That's what we won't know. Oh, it was a success. Oh, great. Yeah, no, we sent it up there. We did a couple orbits, and then we crashed it on the dark side. It was a success. Great. What we don't know, well, it was full of astronauts, and they had a problem. You're just not going to know any of these things. I'm exaggerating, but this is the way it was in the Cold War.
Right.
They would put out propaganda from Russia, and we were worried that they were way ahead of us. And we found out after the Cold War that they were nowhere near as powerful as we thought they were from a military standpoint.
Yeah.
And people over in China are still. I've talked to a couple of people that just got back and came over, and I said, "You can't breathe, you can't see. The pollution is so bad, the cities are so bad, the sickness everywhere is so bad." Okay, that's going to be their problem, is trying to climb out of the industrial revolution on steroids that they've created for themselves with a massive amount of construction and pollution. That's going to be their Achilles heel. It's not going to happen off the planet. It's going to happen down here.
We rarely actually talk about space debris, despite the fact that the whole point of this SKTL space crypto was to try to do good for the space industry and have a profit motive for people who want to clean up space debris in the hopes that the token could create value as we donate tokens to companies that try to clean up space debris. I put this thing, my wife the other day showed me this image she found on Instagram. I'm going to share my screen here. And it drives home the point.
Oh, yeah.
Here was Earth 200 years ago, 100 years ago, even 70 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's how it actually, over the years, here's the 70s, 80s, 10 years ago.
It's great animation.
And 2 years, I guess that image is 2 years old. And I mean, that's the whole point of this. And I just wanted to remind everybody, like, that's why we're here and doing this. We launched this token so that we could learn about how cryptos work and how they're made. And I had an incredible amount of knowledge that I gained doing that. But in the end, we did donate tens of thousands of dollars to 4 different companies last May who took that money and probably sold their tokens. And that's part of why the reason the token price went down. But it happened, and they got that money and paid salaries to people who are helping them figure out how to clean up space debris in the future. And that's why, if we don't solve that thing, but if we don't solve this crisis, it gets exponentially worse until you can't get to space.
Yeah, it is the first thing that's being solved, and yet it's not the only first thing. So there's this parallel, series of tracks. Debris has to get out of the way. It's kind of like send in the street cleaner and then follow with painting the road and doing it. It's kind of like they all have to get in line. And Cal Morris, who we know, has been making leaps and bounds progress. Young company. Probably should invite him back for an update. Maybe invite some of the companies anyway that we gave awards to, where they had a very specific strategy and technology they were in the process of implementing versus a concept, and get caught up on what's going on. The contracts that are flowing for debris removal don't necessarily just say debris removal. They're for orbital transportation, OTVs, or orbital transportation vehicles. The vehicle that'll go up, identify this as debris, grab it, bring it over to where it's supposed to go, drop it off. They'll also take a satellite off a SpaceX launch and deliver it to its proper orbit, up, down, sideways on the other side. Those vehicles are first being designed for debris, but their long-term use is transportation and moving things around in orbit. So when we think about debris, you got to focus on the removal process, and those are orbital transfer vehicles. These little tugs, they're going to be running around with these big gangly arms, grabbing stuff and bringing it to wherever it needs to go. So it's happening.
Was it a couple of years ago that China just blow up one of their they blew up one of their own satellites just to see if their blaster rocket would
Yeah.
would work.
Just because they could.
And that created, what was it, tens of thousands or millions of pieces of
No, it was
space debris?
I mean, this may be the Russian data from the one they did, but it's pretty much the same. It was about 17 or 1800 pieces,
So
all moving
what
at
are the
18,000
odds?
miles an hour.
Looking at that image that we were just showing, I'll show it one
Yeah.
more time. What are the odds that China / Russia or even Iran or South Korea, North Korea would just it's like a hobby that they'll just start blowing up satellites? Like it's what they do. Like that'll be their, like, people launch rockets into Israel. Like this will be that version of that. South Korea will just be like, I'm lobbing rockets up to the
You know what?
the low Earth orbit and hoping I'm hitting some space debris that blows up, and then it hits some of Elon's SpaceX satellites, and then hopefully the U.S. is pissed.
This is like going back in time to the beginning. We're reverting to primitive behavior in space. With all the technology that we have, we're going to be throwing stuff at each other. And so kinetic weapons, kinetic energy, just something moving through space and hitting an object is all you need. No explosives, no nothing. You just need tons of stuff to rain down from orbit on a city. It doesn't need to have explosives. It could be rocks. And I think that's my point. This issue in orbit, people are going to be fighting like they did between their villages. It's like the beginning of the movie 2001. There's a bunch of monkeys there. One of them picks up a bone and uses it as a stick, and all of us. I mean, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be throwing stuff at each other. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. In orbit, it has to look like an accident. Gee, you got hit by something. Well, I don't know what happened. We didn't do anything. And
North Korea or Iran, the enemies of the United States would proudly be like, we did it. We did it. Yeah, we were the ones who blew that up.
They have to get there first and do something meaningful. Their proxy parents will do it.
But as much money as North Korea pours into their ballistic missiles and launch systems, in 10 years, 15 years, you don't think it's likely they'll at least be able to launch 50 rockets, hoping that some of them get to low Earth orbit and hit some shit, because there'll be so much shit up there to hit.
Well, if they even attempt to do that, that part of the continent's going to be glass pretty fast. I mean, they will just get fried. They're not going to be allowed to get stuff off the ground. Okay, you'll be able to pave North Korea because
you're saying that the United States will not tolerate.
They will not be allowed to do. And by the way, anybody does stuff up there, it affects everybody.
Yeah, but disproportionately.
And with their stupid luck,
if you're in North Korea, the last thing you're just trying to get some lice. You're not trying to get on a broadband.
No. My point is they don't have any stuff up there to break.
Yeah.
Nor does Iran. But with their luck, they'd blow up some Chinese satellite. But that's my point. You have to be careful if you're not targeted, and they don't have the technology to go find something. That's us. That's China. That's Russia to an extent. We're the only ones that can go stupid around and playing with stuff. North Korea is not even junior varsity. They're below the Middle East in space capability. And frankly, they may be spending a lot of money in relative terms. They're not exactly setting scientific records.
Yeah, their GDP is equivalent to 1 hour of Apple revenue. Bryce, you were going to say something.
Has anybody ever threatened the International Space Station, or has ever been concerns about any kind of national, security issue with the space station before, Dan?
It's had to avoid space debris regularly, but that's accidental. That's not. Yeah. So Dan, nobody's ever been like, we're going to blow those people up that are in the space station.
It's because the only people who could actually carry out the threat are either already there as partners, or they have their own station. And so the only party not there who can do something is China. So if something happens, it's China. I mean, the Russians screwed around on the station a little bit a couple of years ago, where they, rammed into it with a resupply craft, and then they had a hole poked in the Russian module that they had to fix. But that's nothing. That's the stations are coming down anyway. Someone may try to do something in its last year or whatever. I'd be more concerned about the new commercial stations going up and who's going to take issue with that, because suddenly we'll have 3 of them up there at least to replace ISS. I think everyone has too much to lose. Everyone has more assets in orbit than anybody knows. And I think we have a pretty good idea of where everything is. That's one thing where we're far superior, is our surveillance, tracking, and identification capabilities.
Ironically, the U.S. is ahead of China in surveillance. That's not something we usually say, but I guess when it comes to space surveillance, we're ahead. When it comes to invasive privacy of individual citizens in our country, we're hopefully way behind. I didn't say hopefully. State it factually.
No, I think they lead clearly in controlling their population and espionage, and we lead clearly in trying to live out Aldous Huxley's book, 1984. So other than that,
I guess that's a good point. At least the nicest thing I can probably say about China's government is that, they might be
buying Teslas.
Well, no, I was going to say they at least don't pretend that you have freedom. They're like, no, you don't have any freedom. We're controlling everything. In the U.S., we're like somewhere like this Aldous Huxley.
Yeah, come on. It's a lot better here than it is there.
Where you're like, yeah, sure, you've got freedom. Yes, we promise you've got freedom.
Those poor repressed people in New Mexico.
Oh, man. It's so
Give me a break.
I was looking for my flamethrower.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I don't know what I did with it.
Hard out here, Dan.
Yeah.
The show. I like to finish the show with the flamethrower. I don't know where I put it.
That's not a good thing to misplace.
Last comments or questions, anybody?
I put an article in the Slack just about the Planetary Society had its Planetary Caucus event yesterday in Washington. We established the Planetary Caucus before COVID and then reestablished it to really heavily promote the interests of the planetary science community for all the exploration, like Mars sample return. And the timing was perfect because we had congressional leaders, etc., and we're making a big push that, you shouldn't be cutting out the science to fund other stuff. And so it's an ongoing process, good photo op for politicians, but it's a very influential group, and you'll see it take more influence in DC as we go forward. So
awesome.
Here you go. This is the article.
That's our team. Our team was there yesterday. Bill Nye, Jim Bell, a lot of our planetary scientists that are on our board from JPL and Arizona State and all these other places. It was quite a showing by the Planetary Society. So I'm really proud of those guys.
Thank you, Dan, for sharing, and thank you, Planetary Society, for trying to protect our planet. And I just shared both the link to the article that Dan was just talking about that's now on the screen, and I also shared the Instagram video simulation of all that stuff on this YouTube video beneath us, I believe, right, Cabana? If I put it in these comments, it'll show up on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay. He didn't sound very confident in that. He was like, yeah, I'm sure.
No, but they will be there.
All right. All right, then. Peace.
I just
and love,
verified
everybody.
it. There you go.
Thank you for being here. Do the right thing. I don't know.
Safe. Be safe out there.
Hard work, clean living.
Watch out for space debris.
Yep.
Steel umbrellas. We're going to get steel umbrellas. I'm going to start making them. For that, for steel umbrellas.
What do they say? Sell umbrellas while it's raining. So yeah,
New York City, right?
Sell steel umbrellas while it's raining space debris.
No, but and steel helmets, umbrellas for space debris and for drones. That's what we're going to need. We're going to need steel umbrellas. So
sounds reasonable.
Get on that. Okay. See you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
All right.
Bye. See y'all.